Okay, in this section, now that we've covered how to record and how to get the basics set up, I'm just going to cover some quick tips, which kind of takes it up to the place where I am now. So the first thing that you want to do after doing a performance is generally you want to re-record it quite quickly. Even though we're doing it at half speed, quite often you don't quite hit it right, and it's easier just to do it again from scratch. So this is the fastest way that I've found to delete a performance. You have to delete two things. One is the fader data from here, and the other is the automation data for the scratcher. So the fader data is pretty straightforward. If you click on the piano roll data, which brings up the piano roll, Control A to select it all, and then delete on your keyboard. So now that's gone. And then the other is the automation data for the scratcher. So from the browser, you go to automation, the pattern for the scratcher, which is called scratcher here, and then you have the 4 channels here. You choose one of them, which brings up the data. Control A to select everything, delete. Pick the next one, and it's already pre-highlighted, so you can just hit delete, next one, delete, next one, delete. So now that's all clean, and we're ready to re-record. Now, the other things is just in terms of the sound and in terms of the way that the scratcher behaves. Real decks, because they get lots of rumble from your hand contacting the deck, they tend to roll down the bass frequencies. And I found the scratcher actually has a similar sound, even though there's no direct contact with the deck. It still sounds a bit bassy and boomy. So we'll fix that by going to the mixer, bringing up the channel that has the scratcher on it, which is this one here, and just rolling down the bass in the EQ like that. So that's one thing. The next, which is something that Spiro found, is the fourth knob up here in the smooth parameters. He found if you turn this knob up by about a quarter, it tends to make it all sound a little bit better, a little bit smoother. So we'll do that now. The other thing that you might have noticed from the previous video was that the scratches were a little bit sloppy, and that is mainly due to the acceleration of the deck. By default, it's set to start quite slow, like that. Generally, scratching turntables, they have a very fast acceleration. They have really big, beefy motors underneath the deck, and you can simulate that in Scratcher with the acceleration parameter. If you turn that up, then the deck starts much faster. The thing is, though, is quite often if you're doing a scratch, which involves letting go of the deck and then picking it up again once it hits a certain point, then that acceleration curve actually plays a certain part in the sound. And if you leave it at a fixed value, if you record at half speed and then at full speed, you'll get little pops and clicks where the point where you pick up the sample again won't always line up when you put it back up to full speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same expression that we're using to drive the speed from the formula control and use it to drive the acceleration. So to do that, I'm going to bring up the same expression by right-clicking on speed, bringing up the link to controller option. Grab the formula. Whoops. I'm going to grab the formula and copy it, and just make a note of what expression we're using here, or what controller we're using, which is the formula control, and use and map the same thing for the acceleration. So link to controller. The internal controller is the formula control. The expression is that one that we're going to paste in. Enter to make it compile, and then accept. So now, if I nudge the A value, you can see that the acceleration is now being driven by the same value. And the last thing that I found is, especially when I'm using a Wacom pen directly on the screen, I find it easier if I can get the cursor, the line in the waveform here, to correspond as much as possible to my pen. And with the sensitivity where it is, it doesn't quite match up. This knob controls how much the cursor corresponds to where my mouse is. So if you turn it up, then you see that it starts to track closer and closer to the cursor, whereas if you turn it right down, moving the mouse a certain distance only moves the sample a certain way. And that's handy if you're using long samples and you want to be able to pick out small bits in it. But because this is a short sample, I'm going to turn that right up so that I have a fairly expressive, tight tracking cursor. Okay. Now, the other thing which I do in my setup is you might have noticed that the fader there. If you look at how far the fader goes up in volume, it doesn't go up very far. So if you want to boost that, you do that from the envelope controller. So if you bring that up by clicking on the fader, and you can boost it with this first value here, this first slider called base level. So if you turn that up a certain amount, and then look at where the volume control gets to now when I press the fader, you can see that's now going almost to full volume. So if you want to be completely accurate about it, then you may as well push that right up until that maxes out like that. So now this should sound a bit louder. So that's probably accurate. This is probably better to be able to limit that from the mixer than to try and limit it from the from that control. Okay. Now, other things is how you actually move the sample back and forth. While scratching is a combination of the fader and the moving the record back and forth,